Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
You've read the books. You've learned the rules. You've played the games. And so is your mom. Just making sure you're paying attention. Now, it's time for something completely off base. From the same guys who haven't done anything exciting yet are the Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Potato. Listen in as they talk about all things related to pen and paper games, challenge rules, and go off script. This is the high fantasy commentary you didn't ask for, but your mom did. This is the Epic Table Audio Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Epic Table Games Audio Show. I'm your host, Rob, and with us today we have Zach filling in for Potato. Zach, how are you doing?
Not so bad. By yourself?
We just got past the holiday candy debacle at our place.
Oh,
and
do tell.
It was a few weeks in the making after Halloween. First off, everybody got like a huge haul of Halloween candy. Nobody went out, so everybody prepared for massive amounts of kids, which means everybody was giving my kids handfuls of candy. And my kids take that as they can eat handfuls of candy every day whenever we're not looking.
Obviously
not. So, anyhow, we're not the candy police. So today let's talk a little bit about some of the wish spell, because you're still new to the game.
Very.
And filling in for Potato is kind of big shoes anyway.
Correct.
But your limited experience with the wish spell is very similar to things that you've either read, seen, heard, and kind of looked into on your own.
Honestly, most of the wish spelling that I've come into contact with has been reading through old D&D modules. Magician turned lich creates a dungeon, uses a bunch of wish spells in some extremely creative fashion. That's mostly where I've come across it so far.
No, that's fair. And I think a lot of times when people think of wish spells, especially non-D&D players, they think of wishes similar to Genie from Aladdin. You know, you have to be rather specific, but you generally aren't going to get too screwed over because it's a wish.
Right.
Most of the times in D&D, however, you get screwed over. Which, because of that, you definitely come up with some players who develop either super intricate wishes that cannot be wiggled out of or manipulated too much, or you get those who just wish for things that are intentionally there to screw things up. And detailing one of these things, it's, you can't just say, oh, I wish for 1,000 gold pieces, because it might rain from the sky, and there's either no guarantee you're going to get some, or it's going to come in an entire one sack, and it's going to kill the person you need to talk to move forward. How as we as DMs usually roll. But I read some that were funny. And I want to roll these down. Are you familiar with what a Tarrasque is?
No.
A Tarrasque is a creature that can't die. In fact, all the damage you do to it, when it gets to 0, it just goes to sleep. It never actually dies. And for it to stay asleep, you have to use a wish spell for it to stay asleep. And then it reawakens every so often, comes out, destroys towns, villages, and everything.
Sounds like one of my ex-girlfriends.
Oh, so I came across a wish.
Every 27 years.
Because that's a movie, too. Oh, man. I like that movie. Jeepers Creepers, by the way.
Wasn't bad.
No. So anyhow, I read across a wish that this guy decided he was going to wish that all the Tarasks had wings and could fly.
Okay.
This is one of those players that probably sits too close to my heart due to shenanigans, because I'm a big shenanigans style player. I like the shenanigans, and this one is right up the alley. What kind of things would you really think about wishing for if you were trying to advance your character?
Funding, gear, experience, etc. I mean, if I was trying to advance my character, I suppose if there was something essential to the plot, I'd wish for that too.
Okay. So, definitely still in the realm of normalcy, I would say.
Right.
Because we're talking about character advancement there. And then, on the flip side, what are the kind of things that you would worry about after you wish for? Let's say you wanted different gear. Are you worried about armor that's never going to come off? Are you worried about swords and weapons that go limp instead of hard as steel?
Well, I suppose that sort of tricksterism should be expected, but I haven't had to deal with it yet.
Fair enough. Now, you were just saying that you're looking at creating another character.
Yes.
Wizard.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you were serious or not, but about the potential of the wish spell may or may not be an influence on his advancement as he gets later. What's driving your idea for a wizard? I know that we talked about spamming fireballs, but walk me through your process.
I started a couple games, and I've been sticking exclusively to the fighter class because each of the games I'm starting is completely different and new to me. So I'm trying to basic character, learn the rules. I've always wanted to create a casting character, but for the sake of things, I mean, I'm already jumping in head first. I felt that I shouldn't make it any more difficult to pick up these games than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think the situation is changing slightly, and in one of those games, my 5e game, I think I can at least step into a casting character and not hold up the group so much.
Okay.
Is really what I'm looking at. I can muddle my way through it, but if it's going to make it not fun for the rest of the guys playing, then maybe I want to wait a little bit. I felt it was time.
That's fair. Now, if I remember correctly, your 5e group, you were a barbarian, you had one other barbarian.
Yes.
So you were melee heavy already.
Yes.
What are you hoping for to bring in with your wizard? Because we've talked about the idea of the battle wizard, but it truthfully usually devolves into spamming fireball. Are you looking for support, buff, or debuff? Just pure damage?
I want to, during combat, I want to have a strong suite of support skills, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Spells, cantrips, stuff that I might not know about yet, but is available. I would like to have a strong support. Our bard has quite a few amusing little things, spells or cantrips or whatever, that kind of buff everybody up a little bit.
Yep.
I want to be able to offer that too. However, I would like to be able to competently defend myself. I don't want to have to lean on somebody for that. So even if I only have one or two or a couple good offensive spells, I want to be able to light somebody up if I have to do that.
Absolutely. So fireball is definitely, it's always in the back pocket.
I want to stay away from that just because of the...
Sure. Now, again, this is your 5e game, and everybody knows that I don't generally play 5e. I do know that in a lot of the games that I do play, that they have wizards are really decent because their spell list is huge, but the clerics and their spellcasting abilities that are tied to domain powers are generally way more powerful, but also more limited. Are you considering anything along that lines of just caster, or are you pretty set with the idea of wizard?
I'm pretty set with the idea of wizard. I think in my mind, my view, that's more of a traditional or a pure character form. Kind of like the barbarian I'm playing now is 100% combat. I want to play something that's 100% casting too.
Okay.
I don't want to get into like I like paladins, but I don't want to. In my 5e group, I do not want to go from a fighter to a fighter caster. I want to try the caster exclusive thing right now.
Sure, that makes sense. How do you guys do your new characters in your 5e game? Like, do you come in at the same level your last character left or died? Do you come in a level lower?
We don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. I've always enjoyed the house rules where if your character dies, not because you're intentionally doing something dumb, they come in at the same level.
I kind of think that's where we're headed right now, but I'm not for sure on it.
I like that. I usually also roll if you're intentionally trying to get yourself killed, you'll come in at a lower level. And every now and then I'll go old school and take it back to you come in at level 1. That makes you really squishy as the rest of your party's really high up there.
Well, I discussed this with my DM, and he's like, the rest of the party's at level 4. You'll be coming in at level 1. You'll essentially be leveled up to level 4 in a couple of sessions, or catching up with them in a couple of sessions. But all it's realistically doing is dragging the rest of the group down, protecting your under-leveled ass.
Yes.
He's like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not being a dick. We're just, we're getting rid of this character and replacing it with a more effective one. I'm not going to make you do that.
Right.
So I think, whether I come in at that level or, like you said, a level under, I'm not going to be starting at level 1. Probably. That's fair.
Talking about new characters, in our last side quest game, Potato's character, Father Albrecht?
Albrecht? I don't know. Father.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He never really... not like Potato talks in his third person anyway.
Father A.
Yeah, Father A. Decided to mouth off against a deity.
Well, before we talk about that,
Yeah.
didn't he decide to do something else before that?
Um,
I mean, there was a slap down back down to level 1, wasn't there?
Yeah, now that wasn't his fault.
That wasn't his fault.
So
But the game was setting up to be pretty brutal anyways.
No, not set up to be pretty brutal, but I didn't expect somebody to take a few of these elements and cross them. Like, as long as they stay separate, there's no big deal. But Potato didn't keep them separate, and
It turned into a big deal.
it turned into a really big deal. He got sent to the astral plane.
Yeah.
And he ended up losing 4 levels and getting sent to the astral plane. Now, everybody's 5th level. So, I mean, truthfully, it could have killed him.
Yeah.
It was 2d4 negative level.
I hadn't even thought about that.
And yeah,
You could have went negative, and
Yeah, he could have. And he ended up with negative 4 out of 5 levels. And in the astral plane, he was still a living creature in the astral plane,
for a while.
Which is why he couldn't really see anything. He used no direction in order to find where to go towards the seat of power.
Resourceful.
And, I mean, he ended up speaking with Pharasma, who doesn't really communicate with living. Her job is to do one thing, and that's to pass judgment and help ferry dead people.
Sure.
So he was holding her up, and to intimidate a god... I mean, that's exactly what he did. He went to move to intimidate.
I think he played the character to a T.
I don't know. I don't know if I feel the fact that he played it to a T.
I think he got frustrated. I think he got fed up. I think he didn't take into consideration where he was or who he was potentially talking to. I think.
So I have to agree with that. Anyhow, well, he's thinking about a bunch of other characters he wants to bring in, because after he intimidated Pharasma, he was sent to hell, and that was the end of his story.
Is he considering a spawn thing?
Potentially. Ooh. That's one of the things that would have to most likely happen later because he's got a million other ideas right now. So we'll see how that goes. But he's looking at the issue of developing a character for the story or developing a character for the mechanics.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this is new for you as well.
Yes.
So the idea is, you've heard about min-maxing on inventory setup.
Yep.
And you've actually talked to me about how to min-max certain characters.
Yes.
So you can really push it.
Right.
Like, when your party says, oh man, you're overpowered, but you're basically raw and not doing anything, you're like, no, I can make an overpowered character if you want to see overpowered. So that's building a character to your mechanics. Building characters to your story are taking characters' concepts, figuring out how they fit and work in the world, and developing them to that. So, they're essentially, you're pulling skills from the world, and your character's developed and designed by the world that you're familiar with.
Okay.
It makes sense. But it always feels like in the back burner, and I'm sure you've experienced it with some of your other parties that you've played in, because you were in 3 games for a while.
Yes.
In fact, technically, you're still in 3 games. It's just we're trading Dragon Age out for another Pathfinder game.
Yes.
But you've seen a little bit of it, I'm sure, where characters are decent. They're not mechanically advantaged. There's not a mechanical advantage to their design. But story-wise, they fit flawlessly.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I don't think I'm there yet.
Fitting the characters story-wise?
Yeah.
Well, you're thinking about another character that's going to roll around in a wheelchair at this point. I mean, that does sound... I know we haven't talked about it here in the episode, but that sounds more like your story-driven character than your mechanics-driven character.
I would argue exactly the opposite.
Yeah?
Yes.
So how is roll... Okay, so explain the character concept to our audience, just so they know what's going on.
Oh, Professor X.
Okay.
Wheelchair bound, super mutant, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I was going to essentially drop all the strength, drop everything, take all those points, put it in somewhere else. And I'm talking with my DM about this. And he's like, yeah, fine. Well, if you drop the strength and everything, I'm going to make you role play him as a cripple in a wheelchair. Like, fair is fair. I said, okay. And then that is where I started getting the Professor X idea.
Okay.
I'm like, if this guy's going to be a cripple, and if he can't, he's going to be in a wheelchair, or he's going to be in something, then it just started to coalesce at that point.
Sure. Now, funny thing is, wheelchairs weren't invented until like the 1700s. So if your world setting is in any sort of medieval aspect, you have no wheelchair.
Wagon.
All right. So.
Mule and a wagon.
Okay.
Thought about this.
Okay. Now that we're on the same page, I'm going to ask.
Yes.
Stairs.
What about them?
If you ever have to go see a king, a baron, anybody in a castle...
Oh, no.
What if you have to make it up to the 2nd floor of any building? How are you going to make it through a dungeon?
Oh, the same way my character gets around when he's out of town anyways. Telekinetic. I just got the cart so nobody sees him floating around.
Okay, fair enough. So
that's how that's going to work.
So this is really more so, you have a character idea, and you're going to shoehorn him into the story.
He's going to fit.
Okay. And are you developing the character for the story or primarily for the mechanics?
I think primarily for the mechanics.
All right, explain how you were developing the character for the mechanics then. Because it does sound like for the story it works, but mechanically, I know that we can sack one of our stats to boost other stats at times, especially in character generation. But again, coming from the 5th edition aspect, I'm not as familiar with. How is it going to work out as a benefit to have such a low strength?
Well, I'm just going to be putting those points into intelligence, charisma, etc., is the only benefit from having a lower strength.
Okay. How low will your DM let you go?
I think that's up to me.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
So I do know that if you were to reach 0 strength in your ability score, usually your character dies.
Yeah, we don't need that.
So if you take strength damage, you're likely going to die.
Yeah.
which I'm not sure how your DM rolls, but I would certainly be thinking about that for the future as a DM. Goes back to the wish. Players never get exactly what they're looking for.
No.
So, how's everything else going in that campaign?
Not bad.
It's a simple answer.
I'm a simple guy, buddy.
Fair enough. I feel like I'm doing a lot of the talking. I'm trying to bring us into something here. We have a few other things that we could talk about. I know that we're going to be starting up what I've called essentially the Hunters Guild. I told you a little bit about that.
Yes.
What are you thinking about for that character?
I touched upon this briefly earlier, and I don't think it's the right time, setting, situation for my 5e group, but I think for the Pathfinder 1e Monster Hunter, I think I might do a Paladin.
Okay.
We did talk about this, and I think you were the person that mentioned Paladin to me. I played those characters before. I really like them, and I think that what we're doing here is an appropriate thing. I'd like to play a Paladin for the Monster Hunters.
That's fair. I think a Paladin can really work. A lot of people look at your Paladins and say, well, that's just a license to play chaotic stupid. Because most people look at chaotic good Paladins or lawful, but anyhow, not necessarily always lawful, but any sort of chaotic and good characters are always, we must do good all the time. Recklessly charge in to do good. Get ourselves killed doing good, because that is what good people would do.
So, like Don Quixote?
Maybe to the extreme.
Yeah. All right.
But how do you feel about the concept of a paladin in general? I don't think paladins have to be that way.
I don't think so either.
How do you plan on playing this one if we're not going to play, let's charge in and do shit, because technically we're just a monster hunter group? And
I was thinking more chaotic neutral. I mean, if I don't have to be like a lawful good, if that's not going to be a requirement per se.
Technically it's a requirement.
Maybe an evil paladin then. The anti-paladin.
So that leads us to alignment issues. Our alignment issues, there's 9 alignments. 3 good, 3 neutral, 3 evil. Chaotic, neutral, and evil. I don't know how so many people can kind of bounce around with concepts of pure alignment being the law of the game. I mean, when you look at anybody, nobody is just one strict black and white character.
Big Dave?
No.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
Even then, there are things that he will do that will flex and that they will bend. It's not often, but he'll still flex and bend.
Okay.
But I think that leads to the idea that there are games, and I think there are compatible third-party things that have completely done away with alignment. So some of the bad guys, I now put quotes around bad guys, in newer Dungeons and Dragons content, as well as newer Pathfinder content, they no longer classify certain characters as evil, or naturally evil, or usually evil.
Huh.
Because...
Interesting.
Yeah, weird. And for a lot of people coming into the game, it's already weird when you read through the book and all the heroes are she's instead of he's.
I did think that was a little strange, but then I thought about it and I couldn't figure out why I thought that was strange, so I just moved on.
I think for people it's jarring just because they're not used to seeing she, but overall, I mean, truthfully, he, she, they, them, it's irrelevant in the rule set. The evil descriptor is honestly part of it's irrelevant. Like, there are certain creatures that are just evil. And taking that away, it kind of humanizes or de-evilizes these creatures. And I mean, you hear about the exception to the rule, like, oh, I want to play a mind flayer that's a good guy, and he's rebuking his entire system, and he's going out to do good in the world. I mean that's
Clear.
fine, buddy. You're gonna get killed when you reach topside.
Yeah.
So, I think that we also have those preconceived notions as well about how we think of things as they are. I just think in fantasy settings, some things should always be evil.
I really can't disagree with that much.
I mean,
sometimes it is what it is.
Right, and look at the...
I'm sure there's, like a little bugbear or kobold out there with a heart of gold that wants to do good, but the rest of them are just running around the forest fucking with me, and I want to kill them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be the evil one, but... Right.
Whatever.
Right. And I look at the ideas of... let's see, what is it? The Never-Ending Story. You seen that movie when you were younger?
I think everyone saw that movie when they were younger.
Fair enough. So there was the Nothing. Remember the Nothing?
No.
The Nothing was literally nothing. The entire world was falling away into nothing. Obscurity.
The Nothing.
Black nothingness.
Yeah.
Sure, in game terms, that might be evil. But we can also make the case that it's not evil.
Kind of like Galactus.
No, Galactus was evil.
Okay.
Thanos was evil.
Arguably.
Yes, correct. Arguably, the people who survived, maybe he wasn't such a bad guy.
See?
But yeah, so they take the fact that most players and DMs use these characters in ambiguous stories that generally buck tradition and system. Sure, it makes sense to say they have a tendency to be evil versus everybody within their race is evil. I mean, that makes sense because it fits a broader play style. But in general, I think certain things should still just be evil.
Agree.
I mean, that's... anything that deals with torture is evil.
Yeah.
You can't say normal evil. Tortured for good is not really a thing. In this point.
Well, it's like fucking for virginity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So, yeah, let's see what else we can find. I love Reddit for a lot of our things because we can get a lot. Oh man, I said the bad wishes coming up. Oh, here's where I wish the all Tarrasques in the plains were in. Oh, they were supposed to be invisible and could fly.
Clearly a great idea.
Sounds like a wish just to screw with the DM.
So, what level spells are wish spells again?
I want to say they're level
5?
8.
9?
High level spells. 8th or 9th level, 8th or 9th level spells.
9th level, I think.
So, that makes me wonder, how much lore are you familiar with?
No.
None. 0.
Absolutely none.
Like...
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes!
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so I love the lore in these worlds, and I think with D&D being around for so long, and Gary Gygax being a fantastic writer for a lot of this stuff, they developed such an in-depth lore to everything that it's just incredible to read into. And I don't think you got to read the books. I know how much of a voracious reader you are.
Right.
So I can't even say it seriously anymore. So we have the idea that a character can get to a level where they can cast like 9th level spells, and that's the end. That's the cap. Like your wizard, you're like, all right, I'll get to 9th level spells. Boom, that's all she wrote. But in the history of D&D, there are more powerful spells than 9th level spells.
Right.
And it required multiple people, longer rituals, and clear and direct purposes in what to cast. And these rituals and people would add their power, and essentially you make a larger, bigger spell. And that is how one of D&D characters in their lore ascended from sort of wizard to godhood. And that's also how another character completely brought down an entire floating nation.
All right. Now we were talking about some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, that's in the lore, and if you want to get to that point, obviously you have to survive long enough to level up.
I mean, yeah. Obviously.
And you need more people.
Right. Gotta make friends.
You gotta have a very relaxed DM.
I'll have to start working on that now.
So what other things have you looked into any of the other things that you can generally do in D&D?
No.
In these tabletop games?
No.
No, you just sort of sit down, roll dice, and think of them on your own?
Yeah.
So you don't look into the dumb shenanigans?
I have not Googled shenanigans yet. I am still coming up with my own.
Definitely take some time to Google them when you can. I mean, there are really ridiculous ones. Ones that I've successfully pulled off here. It's funny. In a bar, I bet a NPC patron of the bar that I could walk up to the bar, pee all over the bar, no issues. He was like, all right, I'll take you on this ridiculous bet. Talk to the bartender. Say, I'm going to pee all over your bar. I'm going to give you this much money if I do it. No issues. Says, okay. Roll diplomacy for that one. Make it all go through. Winning. Step 2. Diplomacy. Same NPC. Tell him it's his turn or it's double or nothing. Goes up. Does not have a smooth experience. Where would it? Dumb things. Like I said, I'm a shenanigans player.
Okay.
Did you hear about the time where I was swallowed by a kaiju and I decided to throw my instant tower?
How did that turn out?
Well, I had an instant tower inside of a Godzilla.
So you got out.
Yeah, no. No, I should have, but I didn't.
How did that turn out?
My DM does not like shenanigans. And he was tired of my shenanigans. We were fighting a kaiju, and it was like a Godzilla kaiju, and I got swallowed whole, which was unintentional. But I had an instant fortress, and I threw the instant fortress, and it pops up, and it's 120 feet tall. All right. I know. The kaiju was not 120 feet tall. It should have.
How can this go wrong?
Should have spit roasted it.
Yeah.
but it didn't. And then the rules stated that the door is always facing me when I throw it. And it's also said that I can use it as a thrown weapon. So he did not like that, and the door did not face me, and I had to still be able to get to it, even though I was essentially in this kaiju's stomach, which, I mean, I've never been in a stomach for real, but I assume it's like the cartoon, so it's a sack of liquids.
Yeah.
So...
I think.
I would think so.
Yeah. Swim right over.
Right. So the door wasn't facing me. Then, obviously, once I was in the tower, there was no issues because it has a hardness and it can't be collapsed.
Right.
Because the kaiju couldn't collapse it. And so I got to the top of the mountain, not the mountain, excuse me, the top of the fortress as I was anticipating I would, and I attempted to destroy the kaiju from the inside.
As one does.
Absolutely. He did not like any of that. And it was a fight against the DM every step of the way.
Huh. Well, how did it turn out?
I died.
That's unfortunate.
Very. Absolutely.
Could be worse.
Not really.
Well, not for your character. Rip.
Right. What else? Oh god, I've got a few different shenanigan stories that I've wanted to do. I once played in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 a character who was okayed by the DM to be a contract devil, and they sucker mortal souls into contracts for their souls in life.
Okay.
So you would think that if I am essentially an apprentice contract devil, that my master contract devil would really help me out and make sure things are going well for me.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely
No.
not for my DM.
No?
No.
Huh.
No. Even writing a basic contract would screw me over. I'm like, why am I doing this at this point? It's like, because you're still not experienced. I was like, we worked all the freaking details out. Well, I'm a bad guy. Why is this so hard? So, yeah. I did realize, and I actually just recently apologized to him for all of the shenanigans I played, because I get it now. I understand why it's frustrating. You know, when I've got a table of people who are doing nothing but throwing out shenanigans, it is irritating.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How do you guys do in your fifth edition game to stay on track?
The group's actually pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, we self-navigate.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No railroading?
No, we don't need to be herded or railroad.
All right. All right.
And that's what my DM tells us.
Fair enough. I am king of the screw this mission, let's go to the next town over and check out the casino.
Yeah.
So,
We try a little bit of that. Doesn't go well.
now you get railroaded then?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Even though we're told specifically that that's not happening.
All aboard! Everybody get on! That's fair. Now,
It's all right.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I really forgot where that one was gonna go. So, with what we got now, truthfully, we can wrap it up and call it decent.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, thanks for checking in, guys. Hopefully, you had a good time. You can check us out on Facebook at Epic Table Games, online at epictablegames.com, where we have a growing community and play-by-post community that is still just getting started. We need your help for that. Otherwise, take it easy.
Epic Table Games. Fairy tales, dragons, spice, knights, roll, dice, fantastical, right? Fairy tales, dragons, spice, knights, roll, dice, fantastical, right? Make way for the paladin. Yes, make way for the paladin. Yeah. Epic Table Games. Make way for the paladin. Yes, make way for the paladin. Yeah. Epic Table Games. Thank you for listening to the Epic Table audio show with the paladins of the podcast, Rob and Potato. Until next time, stay in touch on Facebook at Epic Table Games and online at epictablegames.com. Yeah. Epic Table Games. Yeah.